Thank you for joining me, Sue Stevens, Police and Crime Commissioner of Raven and Somerset, and Andy, Chief Constable. Welcome, Andy. So we're nearly at the end of another week, and what a very strange week it's been. It's been very challenging for many of us. But it won't go on forever. This is temporary. But we are having to change our behaviours an awful lot every day. I'm expecting a grandchild to pop into this world any day now, and I'm going to miss out on that very first cuddle. So why are we doing this? We're doing this to safeguard our NHS. We're doing this to safeguard our doctors, our nurses, our first line responders, the police and all our other emergency services to protect them. And that's why we're doing it. I want to thank each and every one of you for making such a really big difference. You've only got to go out. When I go running, I can see that there's very few cars about, and there is a lot of people that are staying at home and staying safe, because that's how we're going to get through this. But let's start. So Andy, can you tell me about how you and the organisation are getting through this?
So the organisation and what we do and the way we do it, so we're adapting every single day. And I think actually some good practice will emerge for this when the dust settles and we move on. I think as you said also, the situation is changing dynamically day by day and week by week. We're maximising the number of officers and PCSOs in the community, and one thing that I'm really pleased at and surprised in a brilliant way is the dedication and commitment of our Special Constabulary. Mm-hmm. Last weekend, by way of example, the Special Constabulary spent almost 700 hours patrolling with us. Some of the members of the Special Constabulary that have been furloughed by their employers have actually come to work with us full time, and we've got more Special Constables getting ready to work with us in the future. So what are those officers doing in the community? They are obviously giving advice and they're encouraging people to comply. They are actually, in the main though, reaching out to people that are vulnerable and making sure that they've got what they need, and they're doing that with other partners through the local resilience forum. Acts of kindness every single day. I think one of the other things that hopefully people watching will be pleased to hear about is that criminals aren't necessarily respecting these guidelines, and they are standing out more than usual. I was out with patrolling officers across Somerset at a number of stations yesterday, and I heard some really warming stories actually in terms of burglars that have been arrested who stood out because they were the only people out and about behaving criminally, and drug dealers who were arrested, one of whom with a knife. So the officers are there for vulnerable people, and they're there doing enforcement to keep our community safe.
That is great. That is really good news. Now, we've had a number of questions, and I'm going to have to go back to the allotments because I still think there is some confusion, and particularly driving to allotments. So what are the police advising to those who want to have their daily exercise by going to allotments, Andy?
Well, the advice is very new advice. So like everyone, we're doing our best to interpret it with common sense. The advice is that people should avoid unnecessary travel and exercise once a day. Now, the way that we're interpreting that is if there is no other way to exercise from your house other than a short drive, which could be to an allotment, then actually we're not going to conduct any enforcement activity about that. We would ask people that are going to their allotments to be mindful of avoiding the opportunity for the virus to spread. So keep 2 meters distance, try and stay away from other people, wash your hands when you get back to your house, all of those sorts of things. So hopefully that gives it some clarity, a common sense interpretation. So
thank you. That's very sensible advice. Now, we've seen other police forces in the country discussing the possibility of using roadblocks to stop non-essential journeys. Is this something that you're considering?
Well, we're considering all the options. We're learning from other police forces about how to help our communities lead this period of restriction upon their lives, rather than be the people that have to do the enforcement. So we've considered roadblocks, but it's not our intention to use roadblocks. What I would say that we're worried about, though, along with other forces, particularly in the southwest, is that it's coming up for Easter. Sunday's going to be a nice day weather-wise, and we really would want to discourage people from travelling. So there'll be lots of advice given, I'm sure, over the next 24, 48 hours about avoiding unnecessary travel, but this is not the time to drive through Bristol, through Somerset, to get to holiday homes, to go for trips out on the beach, to go for picnics. This is a relatively short period of time. We know that it's difficult. We're all individuals experiencing these difficulties ourselves, and you shared with us a personal sadness about that. But what we would ask people to do is do their best to carry on doing what they've done so far and comply with the guidelines to actually protect the NHS and save lives.
And I think these rules and guidance, I think there is a very small minority of people who think this applies to everyone else but not to them. And I think that the staying at home and saving lives, if we use that as a principle, actually some of the rules and guidance just fall into place.
Yeah, I think this is about us all as individuals adopting the spirit of it. Another aspect of the spirit of it is to minimise the number of shopping trips you make. So going every day is not a good idea. If you're managing to follow these guidelines in every other way, but you go shopping 5, 6, 7 times a week, then there is more likelihood that you will spread the virus or actually acquire the virus. So we would just ask people to use their common sense and follow the spirit of it.
Okay, thank you. Now, local people might have seen that the Constabulary put on a new online COVID form on your website. So what is this form for, and when should people use it?
Well, what we were finding is that whilst most crime types have decreased, leading to a reduction in most 101 calls and most 999 calls, what we saw after the introduction of the new regulations was a big spike of either people saying, what does it mean? And actually there's great information about that on the BBC and the government websites, or saying, we want to report someone who is breaching these guidelines. So in order to relieve pressure on our call handling, which is under great amount of pressure because that's an area at which we risk losing people from if they get ill through the virus, we've introduced the online ability to report, and it does show actually so that there is a strong appetite for people telling us where they're concerned about people breaching the regulations and the guidance. So we've had well over 1,000 reports since we got that up and running, and we're trying to respond to as many of those as possible, but respond to them in the spirit of our approach, which is about engaging people, encouraging them to comply with the regulation and explaining what the regulations mean. We're doing a tiny proportion of enforcement where people are either ignoring the regulations, they're criminally active, drug dealing, carrying out a burglary, or actually they're refusing to take the advice of the officer to go home and isolate.
Okay, thank you. Now we've had a very specific question that if a local business is still open but it's not essential, what should local people do? Should they be reporting it?
So the local authority is the enforcement body for businesses that are staying open when they shouldn't be. So we would encourage anyone who sees that sort of concern to report it to their trading standards, their local authority.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much, Andy. And as the weather improves and we're getting towards Easter and bank holidays, as Andy has said, that more people may be thinking, oh well, shall I get into the car? But it really is not the time to get complacent. We're still getting horrendous figures of those contracting COVID-19 and also dying, sadly. So these rules apply to all of us, and we have to take them in the spirit. So please stay at home. Andy and I will continue to work in partnerships with all our local authorities, with health, with other key agencies, and together we can get through this. But we have to get through this together. So until next time, which we will get back together again next Wednesday on the 8th of April at 1:45. Please join us if you wish, and stay safe over this weekend. Thank you.